It is another go round of SDH AM. John here, you there. As I still, we've had this software for what, maybe a year, and I'm still trying to figure it out. It's like you want to put something in one place, you want to put something here, do this, and do this, and of course I'm stumbling all over myself trying to figure out what in the wide world of sports I'm trying to do with this thing. So it is another morning of SDH AM. John here, you there, and today we're going to be bouncing around all over the place. We'll let everybody know what's going on. Coming up after opening kickoff, Kacey White's going to hop in, and she's going to let us know what is going on in the world of college soccer and maybe a little MLS too, just whatever else is on her mind. She got to call the match last night, Wake Forest and Mississippi State, with our friend Glenn Davis. And we'll get the lowdown on the SEC, the ACC, what else is on her mind, and maybe we'll get into the coaching brain of KCD and see where she be coming up here in just a little bit. We do have the bat signal out for special guests starting hour number 2, and we will in hour number 2 later, as we've been doing these last couple of Tuesdays. We're reserving that Tuesday 10:30 slot for our master's class when it comes to the economics of sports, and specifically when it comes to the multi-club ownership model. And it was a conversation, for those of you that might have missed it last week, it's a conversation that started with Eagle Football Holdings and John Texter, and Eagle Football Holdings owing Atlanta United about $30 million over the Thiago Almada transaction. And so what we did is we are catching up with Jason Stevens, who is a football consultant over in England. And we are learning about MCOs, their impact, who does it, why do they do it, and frankly, how the financials work and how folks continue to stay afloat if the lead ownership in a situation is massively in debt, yet they still get to continue to buy clubs and things like that. And so Jason, we taped him yesterday because Jason is in London. So we catch up with him and we play that coming up in hour number 2 as well. So that's the rundown for today. Tomorrow, it is Tyler Pilgrim from Scarves and Spikes. He's going to join us at 9:15 as he always does. See if we can catch up with the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler from MLSsoccer.com. And we get to catch up with the new sporting director at Union Omaha. Jamie Henderson's going to join us at 10:30 tomorrow. And we're going to find out about the new gig, what Jamie knows about Omaha, Nebraska, what he knows about USL League One, the challenges, the why, all that kind of stuff. So we'll catch up with Jamie to wrap up the show tomorrow. Now, if you read or listened to opening kickoff or watched it, however you consume opening kickoff, the Morning Espresso. Opening kickoff is here, John. Morning Espresso is over there. Morning Espresso with Jason gives you kind of the aperitif to the day. It's like your morning cup of coffee, the Morning Espresso. If you caught up with Morning Espresso this morning, the news that came out of St. Louis in all caps is that the Lutz Pfannenstiel era is over. After 5 years, or in the 5th year, Pfannenstiel's time is done. Thursday, batting leadoff, we're going to catch up with our friends from the Ball Watchers pod out in St. Louis and find out really what I want to do with them is I want them to walk through the Pfannenstiel era over at all caps. And I want to go from how it went so well in year number 1 to so wrong now, with coach dismissals and sending coaches on and all this kind of stuff. I want to find out. I want to go from beginning to yesterday and find out what happened, have them walk us through it, because all caps, and I say all caps for those of you that may not be familiar with the reference, because it is St. Louis City, because City is in all caps, and so we go all caps. So St. Louis City, SC, now wants to focus on the next 5-year cycle. So what does that entail? How does St. Louis City, too, impact that? Because they are blowing folks out in the Western Conference and MLS Next Pro, yet you only see maybe Mekhi Joyner every once in a while. So we bring in the twos as a part of that discussion. Ball Watchers are going to join us batting leadoff on Thursday to go with a power hour with Nino and Nico in hour number 2, where we go around the planet. We find out about Sudamericana, Libertadores, all the things. We talk about Portugal and South America with Nino. And then after we go fully loaded, we catch up with Nico, get you ready for the weekend, everything going on, because Leagues Cup is tonight. We'll talk about that in the show in our gap space, along with the other news and transfers and things that are happening tonight. So we'll get into that. That is Thursday. Opposition Research is batting leadoff on Friday. Lucas Panzica from 104.5 The Zone up in Nashville is going to join us, and he's going to break down what he has seen from Nashville SC as they get ready to welcome Atlanta United on the weekend. And it will be Lucas batting leadoff, hopefully catch up with our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring. It was great to see Greg Garza on the weekend at the Unified match and be able to catch up with him. We caught up with Michael Parkhurst last week, and we'll see what Major League Soccer can do when it comes to bringing folks in to talk about the weekend coming up at 10 o'clock on Friday. So that's the rundown. Don't forget, tomorrow night on the network, Inter Miami CF2, Messi and Friends 2, Atlanta United 2 at the Fraction, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:33 kick here on the network, soccerdownhere.net, and also on our Mixler channel at soccerdownhere.mixler.com. All right, opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. I got a question for you. Well, first off, what you do there, you hit the QR code with our friends from Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You go there, you kick off your day with them, you buy out the store. But you can buy out the store with a 15% discount, so you're saving 15% off and clearing out the shelves all at the same time using the code SoccerDownHere15. Get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into the youth games, youth initiatives, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So my question this morning, Morning Lokeville, is this. And it might be a perpetual question this morning. All right, so my morning routine, as getting prepared for the show and everything, and you're like, all right, Nelson's got 9:05, and here's his deal, and here's what's going on. So alarm goes off, and I roll through the papers and social media and try to see what the stories are, the headlines that are missed overnight, so we can talk about them here. And then I'll go down and I'll sprint into the kitchen and grab a quick breakfasty kind of a thing. And then I'll roll, down here into the studio, get everything prepared, hope that the computer turns on and the inputs are warm and everything like that. So here's my issue. When you get certain breakfast food and it comes in a container of 4x4, so that's 16 in a container, and that is what they sell you. Then they tell you on the back, when you're sitting there and you're monitoring calories and things like that, you look on the back and it says daily serving of 3. Last time I checked, 3 does not go evenly into 16. So then what does this mean from the perspective of the breakfast maker when it comes to the individual food? Does this mean that you're supposed to do 3 until you have only 4 left, and then divide it up and go 3 and then 1 so it lasts that little extra day? Or are they trying to encourage you one day out of the run to do 4 and go over your recommended daily allowance of calories? I'm just asking. Because you're always at that point in the conundrum where you're sitting there and you're going, wait a minute. If they say that 3 is the recommended daily, serving size, and then 3 into 16 is technically 5 1/3, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just go ahead and pole vault over that recommended daily breakfast of 3 and go ahead and eat the 4th and figure out what to do from there? Or is it to hell with it? Don't worry about it. You'll make it up with steps. Just do your thing. Or am I supposed to cut that in half and go 2 and 2 so it lasts 6 days as opposed to 5? I'm confused. Traditionally, what I end up doing is, guilt be damned, is there will be a day where I do have 4. So that box will only last me a week. So it is a week of breakfast sprinting down here to the office, where it is 4 days of 3, 1 day of 4, and if it's Friday, so be it. But I didn't know if you out there, as you were trying to look at your breakfasts and looking at monitored serving sizes and things like that, I didn't know if you were locked into that idea of, okay, this is uneven. What am I supposed to do here? Let's ask Kacey. Let's find out about breakfast and breakfast food. So that's kind of an opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. First and foremost, KCD, where you be?
How's it going? I am home
Okay.
still. Isn't that crazy?
Well,
That's
I
not
mean,
a normal answer.
considering all of the moving that you have done recently and everything
No,
that has gone on in your universe, the fact that you are locked in place is kind of strange.
it's the longest time period I'm going to be home for a while, or have been home for a while. So I'm enjoying it for a little bit while it lasts.
All right, so let me ask you this. Since I'm in opening kickoff mode right now, what do you traditionally do for breakfast, considering that you are of the two of us, you are the athlete? What do you traditionally do for breakfast?
I am like kind of one extreme or the other. I'm either like a smoothie or like one of those like energy protein, like peanut butter, chocolate chip balls, those things just to have a little something with my coffee.
Okay.
Or I'm like a brunch, like eggs, bacon, a bagel sandwich with all of that. Like, and I go hard at that. And I probably don't eat much for lunch. So I'm like one extreme or the other.
Okay, because the reason I ask is, because of just trying to get everything ready, it's like I'm grabbing stuff out of the kitchen, and they give you 16 of this particular product that you buy, and they say that the daily serving is 3.
That doesn't work. I don't know.
No, no, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, so I'm is in my situation, literally, it's like, okay, 5 1/3. This does not compute. So, do you carry it over to the 6th day, or do you just say to hell with it and do the 4 on the one day, like Friday or something, just to empty out the container?
You just finish it off. It's like when you have an unread text or an unread email and it bothers you. That's what I would feel like if I had the extra one. So I'm like, finish it off. Let's go.
Okay, see, and that's the thing. It's like for me, I'm like, look, there's going to be a day with 4, and I'm just going to have to deal with it. So, like I said, it was just staring at me this morning as I was going into the kitchen. I'm like, wait a second. Recommended daily serving is 3. There are 16 of them here. So I was kind of freaking out a little bit, and I didn't know if I was alone in my assessments of just making sure that I was approaching this correctly, and that my guilt should just be kind of off to the side and not worry about it.
Nah, you're fine. I'd say go for it.
Okay.
I support that.
Okay, just checking. That's opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Kacey is far better at breakfast than I am. Okay. Yesterday, we're going to talk a little college. We'll probably talk a lot of college, maybe a little MLS, whatever else is on your mind here as you lead off on Tuesday. Yesterday, you were paired with our friend Glenn Davis and got to hang out and watch Wake and Mississippi State. What some of your takeaways from that particular match as we are in the early season crossover part of the non-conference schedule, early returns from Wake and Mississippi State?
Well, I mentioned on Friday when we were looking at this that there's a lot of ACC versus SEC matchups in these non-conference schedules. This was another one that I was really excited about because Mississippi State has a new coach, Nick Zimmerman. He's been there 6 years as an assistant. This is his first year as head coach, and taking on a coach in Tony DeLuce, who's been there for 29 years, a Wake Forest program that's very well established, College Cup finalist last year. I thought it would be very unique to see how this matches up, because when talking with both coaches, Nick Zimmerman even said they want to possess the ball as well. And everyone that follows NCAA women's college soccer knows that's what Wake's MO is. And so I was kind of looking at it going, let's see if Mississippi State can get some possession. Not only did they get the win, but they had the vast majority of possession in the game at their home field. It was a really good performance all around from them. So I was really impressed with Mississippi State. And that's not to say Wake Forest wasn't good either. Going on the road, second game in the weekend is tough, but Mississippi State showed that they can play with the best this year.
And I want to go back a step, because for those that follow you on the social medias, you had the chance to go back to your old haunt also on the weekend, and you had to be there bright and early. We saw your cup of coffee. I guess it was coffee that you had.
It was coffee. It was coffee. Yes, I brought that in. I needed it. I had to arrive at like 10 a.m. So that's an early That's an early arrival for me for broadcasting.
You ain't kidding. And it was a chance for you to go back to the Alma and check out North Carolina in their early part of the season. So takeaways from that broadcast as well. What happened there?
Well, before I get into the broadcast, you seemed really upset with me last week that I only owned one Carolina mug.
Yeah.
So I went to Franklin Street and I got
There
the
you go.
ultimate Carolina mug.
There it is.
Good old Ramesses. I was like, I cannot be talked to like that. So I have to get another Carolina mug. And I did. Went to the student stores and got one. So there you go, John.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, and the size of that mug that is a Ram, I mean,
On
literally,
my head.
that's the size of a Ram truck. That's not just a Ram case.
It is, and I think I could fit my whole pot of coffee that I brew in the morning in this in one go. So it gets its money's worth for sure. But yeah, so I was really, I don't know how to describe it. Just grateful to be able to go on campus. You know, like you said on my Instagram story, walking through where I used to train and into the stadium, just to have that opportunity was just a nice personal moment for me to be able to do it. From a soccer perspective, the expectation was that UNC would bounce back after playing Georgia and having that loss against a team like Rice. And even speaking with Brian Lee, the head coach of Rice, he has been trying every year to schedule against the reigning national championship for the past 4 years. I think he's accomplished that 3 out of the last 4 years. And he said, we know it's going to be a huge task, but it shows us where we're at and it gives us some confidence that we can come up against anyone. So they take that into their conference play. So the expectation was that UNC was going to win this game, and they did. What I'll say is I don't believe, and this isn't just from an alumni perspective, from a truly analytical perspective, that it's not all doom and gloom because they have 2 losses early in the season. One of their senior defenders and midfielders, Tessa Della Rose, is still out. She hasn't seen any minutes this year, and she's a huge leader and catalyst for success for this group. And their entire starting roster is incredibly young, sophomores and freshmen, with only Kate Fossey and Olivia Thomas as upperclassmen. So while they figure all of those little kinks out, while they figure out their goalkeeping situation, I think it's going to be completely fine as they start to get into conference play.
When you look at the non-region, I mean, right now through the ACC, you look at Pitt, who's run the table. They've won their first 4. Stanford has won their first 4, and the numbers are staggering that they have put on the board so far. 19 goals scored in their first four matches. They've only given up 2. Virginia undefeated, Duke undefeated, Florida State undefeated right now at 2-0. They've scored 7 in their first 2. Notre Dame still hasn't lost. And then you get into couple of one-loss teams so far with Louisville, Miami, SMU, Syracuse, Vatech, Wake Forest. They're all 3-1. I don't know. Maybe they all find the same folks to beat up on or something. I don't know. BC, Cal, they're hanging out just a little above 500. North Carolina, your heels are a 2-2. Clemson off to a hiccupy start at 1-1-1, and NC State at 3-1. Going through this first 4 matches in the ACC, I guess early returns on. All right, so I guess. Give me, all right, well, let's play stoplight. All right, let's go red light, yellow light, green light.
Okay.
After the first 4 matches, is there anybody right now that's like red light, danger Will Robinson kind of a thing after the first 4 matches? Is there anybody in the red light category for you?
NC State's going to have a tough year. They have a new head coach, Gary Higgins, there, who's had a lot of success, but they've been down for a couple of years. And so it's not one of those 1-year project type of things. So it's just sticking with the staff, the new staff, and getting through this season, I think, is going to be incredibly difficult for them. So I would say they're the main one right now that I'm not surprised at the start, because there's a lot of work to be done for the new coaching staff.
Okay, so along those lines, how patient as a rule are administrations these days when it comes to soccer, from what you've been able to gather? If it's a new coach and a new coaching staff, how patient are they? Are they looking at immediate returns? Has the pressure been dialed up in this era when it comes to sports and soccer too? Does it drift off to there, or is there more patience when it comes to new administrations and new soccer coaches and things like that? What have you been able to observe?
One of the things you always have to think about is how early is the recruiting process, because back 5-6 years ago, before we started having the transfer portal and everything, it would take a good 3-4 years minimum to see your players come in because women's soccer recruiting was so early in the high school game. Now it is still early, especially for your Power Four conferences. But because you have the ability to have transfers, there's a little bit of a tweak of expectation that it's a little bit earlier. But I would still say in the first year, even 2 years, you're not looking at vast turnarounds. What I think administrators are really looking at, and from conversations I've had when I was in the college game, was what does the team look like? Are they heading in the right direction? What's the whole like morale and thoughts around the team? And then you want to see those little results here and there that you get that maybe you shouldn't have gotten. And that's kind of shows that maybe the next year will be the turning point.
Kacey White hanging out with us, going over college soccer, and we got a couple of things up our sleeve a little later on here in the segment as Kacey bats leadoff here on our Tuesdays on SDH AM. All right, we did red light. Who's in the yellow light for you right now? Who you kind of sitting there going, I don't know, one way or the other after the first four?
Well, I think Wake Forest and Clemson are interesting for two different reasons. I think they're both yellow light in some ways because Wake Forest, in a more positive yellow light going to green, was 3-0 coming into the game against Mississippi State. They beat SMU, they beat LSU, and they beat Villanova. So a couple really good wins in there, then went on the road against a good Mississippi State team and lost. I don't think that's going to define their season by any means, but they do have a really young team that everything clicked early. So I think there's a management piece now of how do you deal with a loss and how do you solve it and come back. So I think that's an interesting one to watch. And I think Wake's going to be very good, but I still put them there because it's a bit of an interesting point in the season for them to deal with that first loss with a lot of freshmen and sophomores in their roster. Clemson, you mentioned 1-1-1. I said, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was going to say that I think they'll have a better year this year. They lost a lot of players last year into the NWSL, so it was a rough one for them. So I think jury's still out on them to see if they can turn the tide.
And so since you have Wake heading into the green light category, who are your green lights after the first four? Has it been a pleasant surprise so far? Or has it pretty much been chalk of, I figured these folks would be here?
It's pretty much the usual suspects in a lot of ways. Obviously, Stanford being new to the ACC is a usual suspect from a national perspective, not necessarily ACC. So I would put them in there. The amount of goals is pretty insane. I will say that. So you got to tip your hat to that. Florida State, we know, is always going to be a national contender. From doing their first game, though, and watching them, their dynamic attack is even more than I think they've had in the last few years. They've always been a possession-oriented team and really wore opposition down. I think they have a really good balance of let's just get after it and then let's slow it down and be more methodical.
Yeah, because you got to go see them against the low-down dirty cheaters from the University of South Georgia Gainesville.
I'm not just supporting them because of you, but I will. So I will be honest along the way, but they're good for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. SEC right now, you're still looking at non-regions: Alabama, Kentucky, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee. Tennessee went out west and has just basically started thumping folks. They're taking care of business out in the Pacific time zone before they come back here. They're all 4-0. Georgia, Vandy 3-1. Mississippi State, once again, the match that you called with Wake, out of the blocks, they've won their first two. A&M at 2-0-2. The low-down dirty cheaters have actually won twice. I don't know how that happened. I guess they cheated. Ole Miss is 2-1. Auburn 2-1-1. LSU at 500. Arkansas is at 500. Missouri's at 500. Texas 1-2-1. Early returns, red light, yellow light, green light in the SEC. What do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. We have to start with Tennessee. I'm going to go the other direction because that makes that loss that UNC had early in the season look very good when you start going to the West Coast and beating up on top programs there as well. Joe Kurt has been with that program for a number of years. I don't even remember how long. I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe I was playing at North Carolina and he was an assistant goalkeeping coach. It was either then or just after. Under Ange Kelly, I know he was there for a while. So to see him step into that head coaching role, I love that just from a colleague perspective and that he got that opportunity. But he has this team rolling. So they're in a really good spot. So for a green light, definitely Tennessee. I would even say Georgia is kind of in that green light, maybe yellow light, still kind of to see what's going to happen. But Mississippi State is a team that I think is in the yellow light. They got a big win, like we said, versus Wake Forest, 10th in the country at the time. But with all the cancellations early in the season, they really hadn't been tested. They had only played Jacksonville State in a handful of exhibitions. Now you just wonder, after getting that big win, do they use that as a catalyst? And it shows really how good they are, or are they just highly motivated? They hadn't played games. They're at home under the lights with Wake Forest coming to you. And so they met the challenge, which there's something to be said for that. And Nick Zimmerman is known to be a great motivator. He organizes his teams very well. So will that be something that they can sustain throughout the whole year? So I'll be interested to see that.
Okay, Joe Kurt, by the way, since you appropriately filibustered for me. Mainstay on the Tennessee sideline since 2007, UT soccer head coach by Vice Chancellor and AD Danny White, April 29th of 2022.
I was so close. I graduated 06 last season, so I thought it was close to when I was playing. So a lot of years.
There's your crossover with Joe Kurt. Well, let me have you put your coaching hat on for a second. Non-region schedules or non-conference schedules. When you are in a position to lay out a grid to get you ready for conference play, whatever conference you were in, are you of a mind that you want to challenge yourself and whatever the non-region schedule is, line them up, and if I go 0-8, I'm 0-8? Do you want to mix? Do you want to blend? Do you do the bell curve to where you try to build into a non-region schedule? If you're a schedule maker as a coach, which method would you pick, and how would you address it when you're talking about a college schedule?
Well, how honest do you want me to be? No, I'm just kidding.
Lay it out. I mean, that's what we're here for.
I'm not a very controversial person, but I'm going to say a couple things that are just real. It kind of depends on where you're at in your coaching, right? So how long have you been somewhere? How is your team performing? Because one of the things you have to be careful with is going too hard and it looking like there's not a successful season, because some athletic directors and administrators define success only by wins, even at women's soccer. So if you've had a couple bad years, you don't want to go crazy and start 0-6. That's not looking good for job security. So I'm going to be honest right there. That's part of things when you're not in a good spot as a college head coach. So wanted to address that first. But let's say everything's hunky-dory, you're not worried about it, and you're looking at your schedule. My personal philosophy has always been that conference is really what matters. So you have an amount of time, preseason plus non-conference, to find out who your team is. And that means, what are we good at? What are we exposed by? And how do we evolve that or change that in a really short amount of time? On top of that, you have to think about the mental side of the game. I've always been very big on the confidence side and building the mentality side. And mentality and building confidence doesn't just mean that you win every game. Like we talked about earlier, Rice wanting to play the defending national champions, teams like that, Florida going to Florida State, first game of the year, talking with Sam Bohan. They want to see how their team stacks up, and then they can use that to build confidence that they can go into conference play and compete with almost everybody. And so all of those factors come into play so that when you hit conference play, you can be rolling.
Then how do you keep people from freaking out, whether it's on your roster or just out in the community that are fans and boosters, if that number to the right in the wins and losses, if the number to the right of the dash is bigger than the number on the left as you're going into conference play? How do you keep people from freaking out? How difficult is it to sit there and have them understand the context of why you did what you did, even though you might be 3-5, 2-6, or whatever going into conference play?
It's so hard because it's a roll of the dice, because what if you don't perform in conference? Then your plan does kind of go out the window. But being in the community, being in the media, and kind of putting your vision out there and your message, just like you would to your players, is important to your stakeholders and to your community and to your boss, things like that. Everyone needs to understand that vision to a degree, just at different levels. And so you can get ahead of those things with how you communicate to the people that genuinely care about your program. Ultimately, wins matter. And we know that. Yes, this isn't pro sports, but the reality is the landscape is changing. And wins do matter. It's just how much is that going to trickle down and permeate into the Olympic sports, like a women's soccer, like a men's soccer, and other sports along that line.
All right, before you get out of here, believe you've got New England and Charlotte coming up this weekend in the MLSs. And as of right now, Revs, they know the pressure that they're under. And you listen to Leo Campana, you listen to Caleb Porter. It's like, yeah, we know. You don't have to remind us. We're on an upswing. Just kind of bear with us here a little bit. Right now, they're favored 7:40 kick on the 30th. And Charlotte comes to Foxborough as a plus 173, so they're a slight dog, and your draw is a plus 270. With Charlotte, you kind of don't know what you're going to get with Wilf Zaha on a daily basis. Is Wilf going to sit there and complain and gesture and gesticulate wildly to fans who are not happy with his output? Christian Kalina continues to stand on his head when it comes to being in net. They've had a couple of acquisitions come in the secondary transfer window. New England kind of sitting with who they are, but they brought in this guy named Matt Turner to kind of help out between the sticks. Early thoughts as you prep for that one coming up this weekend?
Charlotte is in great form. We know that with their series of wins that they're 7 in a row right now, but their home record is really where they hang their hat. And so they have to go on the road to New England. They've shown that they can do that, but it will be very interesting. What I think will help them is that they just played a game against Red Bulls that they did not have the majority of possession. And that's not normal against a Red Bulls team who usually likes to play in transition. This year, they're possessing a lot more. Charlotte showed that they can sit in defensively in that 4-4-2 block and use the attacking transition and then see out a 1-0 game. There's a lot of different ways you can win, and that's something that they can take into this game. I'm not saying they can't possess against New England, but when you go on the road, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, but they're in such great form and there's so much confidence that they have with not only scoring goals, but getting shutouts. But I have to say this, I mentioned the mentality piece. New England is in a must-win situation every single game now. I love this time of the year because this is where you see that sometimes tactics are important, which I love, but sometimes you throw them out the window. Sometimes players just have to step up. There's mental sides to things. There's courage. There's bravery. There's just getting after it. And when you have a team that has their back against the wall, you really don't always know what to expect. So will New England be able to use that as a catalyst to be able to get results? Because ultimately they have to have it. They're very far off the playoff line. So these 3 points are vital to them.
New England right now at 31 points, 8 points out of the 9 slot in the play-in, 8-12-7, 3-8-2 in Foxborough this year, which is kind of an odd duck. Mm-hmm. Charlotte right now 4th in the East, 7 on the spin, 15 wins on the season, but they're 4-9-1 away from the bank. And so we'll see what happens. 7:40 is a part of the big 7:30 kickoffs on Saturday. And as always, Case, it's great to pull through the universe and see what's going on in the world of women's soccer, what else you have on your mind. Any other parting shots before you get out of here? Doesn't have to be anything to do with soccer. Is there anything else on your mind that you want to get off your collective chest?
Yes. I have some exciting news, which is that I figured out how to turn off my email notifications so they don't ding during this interview. And I was messing around with it. I'm like, it was that simple? I didn't know that. Because I think it was 2 weeks ago I said, I don't know how to do that. And after that, I thought, that's really not very smart, Kacey. So you need to go figure that out. So exciting news.
Absolutely. And you're a step ahead of it when it comes to me. As always, Kacey D, you've got a place to hang your hat whenever you got something on your mind. It's always great to catch up with you in your normal Tuesday slot, bat and leadoff when it comes to women's soccer and the college game across the board. As always, great to see you, my friend. Don't be a stranger. We'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Have a great week.
There goes Kacey. And there goes Kacey D. Where's she be? She be at home. And there is a four-legged individual that I'm quite sure is quite pleased that she is at home and hanging out and absolutely knows that, look, mommy's home and it's time that she give me the pets and give me all of the food and all the things. So that's Kacey D. Kacey White hanging out with us, and she gets to break down everything, batting leadoff on our Tuesdays, women's soccer, college soccer. She gets the tap with in the Major League Soccer broadcasts on Apple. And sometimes she and Jess, the Wonder Twins, get to take a city by storm. And so we'll see what happens this weekend. So KCD gets to hang out with us and break down everything going on in her universe. With the college game coming up and having started, we figured it was important to have that kind of a voice attached to what's going on here in the SEC and the ACC. And having Kacey with her history with the University of North Carolina, she's a part of the broadcast team with the 4-letter. Like I said, she was paired with our friend Glenn Davis last night calling Wake and Mississippi State. So she had that one on her dossier. And so it's great to catch up with her on a weekly basis and find out what's going on in the world of college soccer, women's soccer, whether it's NWSL and all points in between. So that's Kacey White at Kacey D. White on the Twitters and everything there. So thanks for hanging out with us here once again. That is leadoff for SDH AM here on your Tuesday Thoughts. Like I said, we got the bat signal out for hopefully a special guest, and perhaps she'll join us coming up second hour. Once again, we wrap up hour number 2 with our friend Jason Stevens to continue our conversation, our master's class in the multi-club ownership and the economics of sports. And so we'll be drifting in conversations with Jason. We also have some South American friends that we'll be checking in with and getting the thoughts about the change in the South American game, what's going on down there as well. So that's going to be wrapping up the show toward the tail end in the last half hour, and we'll roll through there. So thanks for hanging out with us this morning, as you always do. And let me check in and say hi to everybody who has dialed in this morning. Morning local, morning 4-card. 4-card, the hot dog and the hot dog bun scam. Yeah, same as the hot dog buns, Morning Wiley, being a different count than the hot dogs. Absolutely. I mean, all right, and I find this out also in like multivitamins and things where they sit there and they tell you to take 3, and then by the time you're done, this goes back to opening kickoff for those of you that missed this conversation, where my breakfast is an odd number to the serving and what they recommend. So this is the discussion that we've gotten into, where it's apparently the same with hot dogs and hot dog buns. And so you end up having to buy more buns, I would imagine. So all right. So Wiley and 4-card, I need your help here. Is this, there are more hot dogs than buns, or is it more buns than dogs? That's my question. But either way, you've got to buy more of one than the other. So you literally will end up buying 2 containers or 2 packages of whichever is the more or whichever is the less. So you can cover the number of the second factor and make sure that it's all there, but you end up with all of this excess. If it's excess bread, that's a problem. If it's excess hot dogs and the Frankfurters themselves, then you should be fine, because then you can have those and you can warm them up 2 at a time, as long as you take your fork and you puncture them and they don't explode in the microwave, which I've had happen to me. But I don't know which one is it. Okay, so 10 dogs and 8 buns. Thank you, David. 10 dogs and 8 buns. So 10 dogs and 8 buns, and that's the problem. So literally you would have to buy what? 5 packages of buns and 4 packages of dogs to line it all up. You'd have to get to 40 as your common denominator. So you literally would have to buy 4 of dogs and 5 of buns. And Abby's like, some hot dogs have 7? Certain Hebrew nationals, that's crazy. Because then if you go 7 and 8, 7 and 8, 35, 42, 4, 7 and 8. That's a tough one. You literally would have to go 8, wouldn't you? You'd have to go like 8 and 7. And that gets you to 56. That's crazy if you'd have to do that. I mean, doing the 4 or the 5 is fine. You get 5, you're having a party, 8 buns and 4 sets of dogs. You're 40 and 40, you're fine. But 7 and 8, you'd have to carry that to 56. You'd really have to have a big party for that to happen. So morning 4-card and morning Wiley, by the way. Just share one with the wife. Well, David, here's the thing. The boss has her own breakfast behavior, and it's far healthier than mine. So she literally will do the oatmeal and she'll do the fruit and she'll prepare all of that stuff herself. For me, it literally is busting through the drive-through window, grabbing what's in the kitchen and coming downstairs because I'm trying to sprint and it's like, oh ish, I've got to go down and do the show. You're trying to eat and prepare at the same time. So no, she has like the frozen fruit, she's got the oatmeal, she's got the coffee, she's doing that thing, and she's got it all laid out. She's far healthier than me. And so that's our difference. So yeah, David, she's far healthier than I am. She looks at the stuff. She literally will just when we're making the laundry list, the list for the shopping list. She's like, okay, it just says breakfast John. And so she knows what that means. Get the nastiest, crappiest thing that you can ever get and buy it, and he'll eat it, and I don't have to touch it. And I mean, it is the prefab Danishes and the prefab muffins and all that stuff that's already prepared. And so literally that's me. She's off into the healthy world. I'm eating like the prefab cinnamon rolls and the prefab Danish and all those things. That's what I'm doing anyway. That's the difference. She's far healthier at breakfast than I am. Me, it's a hit and run. Four card is saying just eat the fourth and skip lunch. Not wrong. Not wrong. Not at all. And he says, never look at serving size. Nothing but heartbreak. Absolutely true. Yeah, because you sit there and you go, how many of these did I end up eating? Absolutely true. Jordan says it's a protein shake during the week and bagels with cream cheese. Now, for me, Philly cream cheese on a bagel, unbeatable. Protein shake, I get that. Morning, Abby. You see now, Jordan goes like, yeah, well, I add whey, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. Yeah, so far healthier Jordan than I am. Yeah, so yeah, Abby, we're talking breakfast. Abby's like unhealthy cereal and add wheat germ, and oh yes, he does. Abby, go ACC because the Florida State allegiance, and Dell is like, go Clemson. And yes, how about them Knowles? Yeah, Charlotte is on fire, and yeah, and Pep BL. That was why I left Dell mentioning Pep BL out of the discussion. They're trying to find scoring in other places, and I think that's going to be the test, especially on the road for Charlotte here with early returns that we got from KCD. Is you're having to find scoring. I mean, Kerwin Vargas scored on the weekend to give them the win over Red Bulls. And so you end up with Kerwin Vargas getting on the score sheet. That's the kind of participation that you need from the second level folks that is going to continue this the 7-game win streak that you're on that has got you to fourth in the standings in the Eastern Conference. So Pep BL, yes, he has been injured. And Jordan selfishly wants Jordan wants Charlotte to finish higher than Messi and Friends. I think everybody wants their particular team, even if it's not their team, to finish higher than Messi and Friends. I think everyone is collectively now rooting against Messi and Friends on the whole. KFC, good morning. And thanks for coming by. I think that, and as you think about it, at its most base emotional output, I think that because of the super team that has been assembled and continues to be assembled, oh, there's an injury. Hey, look, here comes another star from Argentina. You look at all of that and you're like, okay, I need somebody to knock them off their pedestal. I need somebody to knock them off their perch. And it's like basically right now it's ABM, anybody but Messi. That's kind of where things are. You have the folks in Fort Lauderdale who wear the pink. You have the Messi fans, the Rodrigo fans, the Busquets and Alba fans that wear the gear. And so ergo, the rest of the league mentality of ABM because of the idea of them pushing the limits of the salary cap and pushing limits of what you can do and who you can bring in and what you can do and TAM deal this year, DP deal next year, those kinds of things. I give them credit. I give them credit for pushing the envelope in Major League Soccer, for having the rest of the league think about their approach when it comes to assembling a roster. How do you do it? You're going to have those owners like you have here in Atlanta, like you have, and it's not a whole lot, really. You've got a whole lot of clubs that want to cautiously build, you've got owners that want to sit there and, okay, we'll do it the academy way, like Philly. And then you have the ones that are not afraid to do both, which is what you have in Atlanta, or what you have in Fort Lauderdale, with it's just the assembly of stars. When it comes to spending money, you're seeing more of it, which I think is a good thing, obviously, for Major League Soccer on the whole. But the idea of ABM, they're spending money, they're pushing the envelope, and I'm waiting for the announcement of the fourth DP, frankly. But you look at Philly. Philly's doing it through the academy. They're spending strategically on big names, but they're not dropping a lot of the time. Cincinnati spending strategically, they're spending more. Nashville spending strategically, and they've got a game plan with a coach. Charlotte spending more, and now you're dropping $2 million on Australian league players now. You bring in Wilf Zaha, you bring in Ashley Westwood, you bring in Pep BL. You're spending money strategically. Orlando spending money strategically, spending more. Messi and friends, we know about that. Columbus building through smart transactions. They're not breaking the bank, but they're bringing in folks that will fit a system with Wilfred Nancy. They're not just spending money to spend money to bring in a player and have them fit the Nancy system. It's like, okay, I need this dude to fit this system. NYC, they ain't spending no money. I mean, literally, I think what is going on with NYC is you see them spending money to build Dylan Butler Estates, and then maybe the bank vault will open once the building is open. Right now, it's like, all right, we get a guy here or a guy here, and then we'll figure it out. Red Bulls, it's a Red Bullsian way of going. They'll go through the system. They might find a strategic pickup here or there, and that's Red Bulls for you. Chicago Fire spending more money because you have an owner that now has Greg Berhalter with the keys to the operation. New England, New England, you would think that with Robert Kraft, they might be spending money, but they're not really spending money like you would think if Robert Kraft was as engaged as, say, Arthur Blank is. You're getting a couple of key transactions where you're spending money, but you're not spending a whole lot. You're not going over the top trying to spend 8 figures on a player. Toronto, they'll spend money all day long. They don't care. It doesn't matter. The exchange rate, fine. 30% exchange rate, great. Whatever. We'll spend money. Montreal, not spending money. DC United, not spending money. San Diego did it strategically. They wanted to work through the spine of the team, and they trusted Mikey Veras in the front office and Tyler Heaps to do it the way that they were looking. And we looked we all looked at that roster at the beginning of the year in San Diego, and we were like, I don't know. It's a system. Mikey Veras, Tyler Heaps, they had an idea in mind. They worked down the spine. They're doing okay. You bring in a strategic pickup like Anders Dreyer, who is in the MVP discussion. And so spending strategic money plus Chucky Lozano. So you want to make that big splash. Then you bring in strategic pickups. Minnesota, not really spending money. They're probably looking to still flip Tony Oluwaseyi, and it would be for $7.5 million. What do you do with that 7.5 once you get it? That's my question. Vancouver, you bring in Thomas Mueller. And I had questions about Vancouver, considering that the team is up for sale and what the level of investment would be. And so they're bringing in Thomas Mueller. So, okay. I mean, right now, you're still actively engaged in bringing in players. You bring in the big splash. You see what happens. Seattle, we know what Seattle's doing. Seattle's building from within with the academy. You're seeing the academy efforts and inputs, and you're seeing the success that's there, in addition to picking up the one or two strategic folks. So build from within and pick your veterans, and then find your big transactions. So the 3-step process is working for Seattle. LAFC, they're spending money. Portland's spending money, but not as much as they have in the past. So it's a strategic pickup, and they're not afraid to break the bank and maybe go 8 figures on a star striker. Colorado, having to do it strategically, which with Stan Kroenke money, I'm somewhat shocked about, but you're doing it within a system, and so Chris Armas right now seems to be happy with returns. San Jose, You have a couple of big pickups, but once again, it's what Bruce Arena wants to do. And so it's a couple of veterans, a couple of pickups, and some youth. And so it's a bit of a mix and match in San Jose. Austin spent money, broke the bank a couple times. It has not worked. The offense or lack of offense that Austin is getting from their 3 DPs, and I know that obviously the injury to Brandon Vasquez is a part of this as well, but scoring 26 goals in 35 matches so far this season literally puts them next to last in offense. DC scored 24. Austin has scored 26. Austin is next to last in offense in Major League Soccer. You know, there was a time when own goal was fighting Brandon Vasquez to be on top for goals scored in Austin. Brandon Vasquez, by the way, is still the leading goal scorer in Austin this year. Brandon's got 5. Open Cup hero Brandon Vasquez with 5 goals this season leads Austin in scoring, and he's injured and has been. Uzuni and Owen Wolf each have 4. Guillermo Biro has 3. Bukhari. So your 3 DPs, Vasquez, Uzuni, and Bukhari, have 11 of your 26 goals. 5 of them are on the shelf because they're injured. 5 goals, 4 goals. 9 of your 26, 2 of your DPs, but it's 5 goals and 4 goals, and your third DP only has 2. Pereira, Gallagher, Kolmanich, Sanchez, Diesler, Rubio, Taylor, all with 1 goal. 7 dudes with 1 goal. I think own goal has 2. And so own goal is tied for 5th with Austin. So 9, 13, 16, 18, 25. So, okay, so own goal is back to 1. Okay, so own goal is at 1. So own goal is tied for 6th. But 11 of your 26 goals have been scored by your DPs. 5 goals, 4 goals, 2 goals by your DPs, and 5 goals are on the shelf and have been. And no one has overtaken Brandon Vasquez in Austin for the lead for goals scored. So that's where Austin is right now. So they've spent money and they have not had the returns. RSL, not really spending money. Dallas, trying to spend money, but not doing it well. Obviously, you look at the Lucho Acosta deal. That did not go well for them. Houston, trying to spend money with a new owner, but they've kind of curtailed it recently. Sporting is in a time of transition, not really spending a whole lot of money, looking at youth, but they did pick up Dejan Joveljic in the league transfer buying situation that you can do now. The intra-league transfer for cash. So the Bishop was straight cash homie. St. Louis, like I said, we'll find out more about St. Louis and their approach financially. It is into a system, which meant that you were looking strategically. You did spend on a couple of stars a couple of seasons ago, but that has waned. And we'll find out from Ball Watchers batting leadoff on Thursday about what's going on with all caps. And then LAG is going to spend money, but obviously when you look at not having a Ricky Puig type player, you see how it forced LA to have to do a bit of a rethink. Marco Royce, finally, the engine's turning over there, and you started to get some wins, but you had your disastrous start, and you're at 19 points, 4 wins in 27 matches. So the approach differs. Level of success differs as well, but I give the folks in Fort Lauderdale credit for pushing the envelope in wanting to bring in stars, wanting to challenge the cap, be imaginative about it. And if it means that your number one star is getting a piece of the action, the TV deal, he's appearing in Multiplicity in a home improvement ad, he's playing beach soccer, getting a beer. I mean, I give them credit for being imaginative and fitting him under the cap and him still making $65 million a year. I think the salary is 20, and then endorsements double that. I give them full credit for it. But trust me, I understand the idea of assembling an all-star team and then not wanting them to win everything. I mean, we always sit there and we look at last year. So how did the finishing first in the East work out for you then? They still have defensive issues. The POV deal did not apparently not happen. I haven't seen anything saying that the Piovi deal did happen for another $7 million that was going to be spent. I think the Moss brothers at points, they sit there and they try to figure out how they can make it one gigantic write-off with all of the revenue that they have and with everything that they're trying to fit under the cap. They still have issues at the back. They figured what they would do is they would have the star power, and it would be Messi and friends scoring goals, and then you find somebody in net that can stop some things. And they turn it into arena football. Give me one stop. That's all I want. Issues at the back are going to be the issues at the back. That's where they can be had. But that was the choice they made. That was the choice Messi and friends made about their approach. And it doesn't matter if it's Falcone, Lujan, Chelo Weigand, everybody that they've trotted out back there, there's issues. And speed and transition and shooting and just having that back line on its heels. It's like, yeah, it's going to be 11v9. Look, it's going to be 10v8 when it comes to defending and all that kind of stuff. Figure out your angles. Make sure that you can find a way to dispossess and then turn it in transition, because the two that are not helping to defend, they're going to be already off and running in transition. But no, like I said, I give Messi and friends a boatload of credit. I do. They're pushing the envelope and they're trying to drag the rest of the league along with it. So that's where the spending has gone. Where Jordan said, and then that's where this went. Just want Charlotte to finish higher than the Inter Herons. You're not alone. I think everybody that is not a fan of the pink, it wants their club to be ahead of Messi and friends at the end of the year, and they don't want Messi and friends to win a title. Like I said, Leagues Cup coming up. We'll get into that preview tonight. So let's see. Dell, 10 hot dogs is a pound. Okay. Okay, so maybe that's it. Okay, so Dell says buns are typically baked in clusters of 4 in pans designed to produce 8 rolls apiece. Okay, so it is a poundage. It is a weight distribution issue as to why things are a certain way. Okay, Abby and her. See, now this is Captain Crunch adding raisins and wheat germ. Getting back to our breakfast discussion this morning. Captain Crunch, raisins, and wheat germ. That's almost too healthy. I mean, it's like, you're going to have Captain Crunch, have Captain Crunch. If you're going to have the raisins and the wheat germ. Ne'er the twain shall meet. Jordan is doing other things. And like I said, I'm very stereotypic when it comes to my food. But I said, yeah, Philly cream cheese for me on a bagel. I love it. But yeah, Jordan's like, nah, not Philly cream cheese. David said he did not have lowest common denominators on the bingo card today, and now he's upset. David, I'd love to see your bingo card. Just once. I want to see, like, at the end of a day, what your bingo card looks like and where we go. Oh, Tillamook from Oregon. Okay, got it. Michael, good morning. Michael listened to the season ticket holders discussion that Chris Henderson had last night. I did, full disclosure, I read some of the feedback on it. But since that is a season ticket holders thing and it was not meant to be produced, publicly or reproduced for anything like that, that's why you're not hearing any sound from it, and we're not necessarily discussing it. But I did read comments where where Chris was discussing, and Mike was asking the questions to Chris about path and players and things like that. So I will leave that discussion to behind closed doors in a season ticket holders discussion. But I did see that Chris was discussing the ambition for the club, the desires of the club, player feedback, and those kinds of things. I did see that. Yeah, on higher, and Abby, true, yes. Abby, a higher cap in addition to the 4th DP. Absolutely true, yes. You got to have a higher cap. And I think that if you add the 4th DP, though, I think you need to have a floor. And this is something that we see in other sports, where if you have a cap, you have a floor and a ceiling. And I think that if you go to that 4th DP, I think that you've got to have a floor. To where you have to make sure that your clubs are spending to even the floor. even look, even if CF Montreal is spending, make sure they spend to the floor. If DC is spending, make sure they spend to the floor. There were times in the National Hockey League where you'd see the team in Arizona and they would get a bunch of dead contracts and they would attach them to their roster. Folks, they knew they weren't going to play, but they had to do that to get to the salary cap floor. Obviously, I don't think you'd necessarily have to do the same thing in Major League Soccer, but I want a floor. If you're going to have a ceiling, then if you're going to expand to a fourth DP, have a floor, have a ceiling. Make sure that they spend it to at least a certain number limit. That's what I would do. Guarantee that you're going to have a cap figure of, say, 20 million, period. Something like that. Some figure that the MLSPA will agree to where you'll have at least a minimum spend by a club on their salary figures. And yes, and Michael with Atlanta spending money. I don't know, Michael. Own goal, our third leading scorer. That's an interesting question. I know that I don't think are they third. I don't know if it's third. Let me check real quick. So, goals 13, 19, 21, 25, 27. Okay, so 27 goals have been scored by individuals for Atlanta. So four. I think it's 4 own goals if my math is correct. So 4 own goals this year for Atlanta United this season. Look, take it and run. I mean, shoot. So that would put the own goal third, to answer your question. So if it's 4, then they're third. So that's what you're looking at when it comes to Atlanta United, specifically in the offense. All right, so Open Cup. John, where are you? Leagues Cup is tonight, and it is getting you ready for the Miami and Orlando. So literally, it is Purple Team and Messi and Friends at 8:30. Then you have LA and Seattle at 10:45. Both of those on MLS Season Pass and on Apple TV. And so you've got those matchups tonight. And just to give you a bit of a preview of both of these. Once again, looking at the Central to South Florida Derby, 18th meeting all time. Purple Team leads the series 7-5-5. Of course, that takes a lot of the early returns as they were building the team down in Fort Lauderdale, where they were getting beat up early. Then Messi and Friends won the only Leagues Cup meeting back in the 2023 round of 32-3-1. Record in the Leagues Cup, Messi and Friends are 13-2. Orlando City is 7-3. Messi and Friends 3-1-1 in their last 5. Orlando City, by the way, Purple Team has won 4 of 5, and it's 4 wins and a loss. Messi and Friends beat Tigres once again in the quarters, 1-1 draw to DC United in their latest game, and it was a heavily rotated side. We'll go back and we'll look at the lineups for both of these teams heading into this matchup. Orlando City beat Toluca in the quarters, lost 5-1 to Nashville over the weekend. It was over at the half. Over at the half. Messi and Friends looking to advance to their second Leagues Cup final in the last 3 years. Remember, they won it 2 years ago. And Lionel Messi has missed the last 2 Leagues Cup games, could provide a boost tonight. And double-checking Michelle Kaufman and seeing what Michelle has to say about, am I misspelling Michelle Kaufman? Michelle Kaufman. Where is Michelle Kaufman? I was like, wait a second. Hang on. Oh, maybe that's why. Hang on just a second. I was looking at it in the wrong place. Michelle Kaufman is usually the one that we legitimately look at and go, okay, she's the one that has she's the one that's got the low down and the skinny. Training right now. Messi and Alba are in training. So Messi and Alba are training for tomorrow night at 8:30 with Messi and Friends and Orlando and LA and Seattle, just to go over the lineups. And so literally, and that picture with the very wide video from Michelle Kaufman happened 10 minutes ago. So Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba in training this morning, getting ready for tomorrow night. And like I said, we'll talk to Nico about Seattle. It'll be a late night for him, and we'll catch up with him on Thursday morning. But yes, so 10 minutes ago, technically 11 now, A lot of toe touchies and a lot of windmills being done by Messi and friends as they were getting ready for the matchup tomorrow as they travel north to take on the purple team. So last time out, just so you have a gauge as to where minutes were and where folks were. 1-1 draw for DC and Miami, which was a bit of a stunner. Lineup start for Messi and friends. Rocco Rios Novo in net, which to me means probably Oscar Ustari is going to start. Noah Allen, Lujan, Saylor, and Cello Wegant, which probably means to me that Maxi Falcone is going to be starting in the back. Aviles and Ruiz, your two midfielders, your two holding in front of the four. Pico, Segovia, Kromoski, and Tadeo Allende were your attackers. So this looks like, against the purple team, it's going to be all hands on deck. It's going to be super friends to the pumps and ready to rock and roll. So that would be, if it was something other than that, something that would happen because of, say, training or something, then that would be the change for Messi and friends coming into this matchup with Orlando. Remember, once again, Nashville and Orlando, it was over at the half. It was 4-0 at the break. Brace from Surridge, brace from Mukhtar. If you had him in fantasy, you were doing pretty well. 4-0 at the break. Luis Muriel got a red card after scoring. 5 minutes after scoring, he gets a red card. So Luis Muriel will not be in Orlando's next matchup in Major League Soccer this weekend. And Jonathan Palacios scored at 90+4. So your lineup for the purple team last time out, it was pretty much starters. Gillespie was in net, 4-4-2. Marin, Janssen, Schlegel, and Kyle Smith at the back. Thorhalson, Gerbe, Arujo, and Nicolas Rodriguez. And up top, your strikers were Ramiro Enrique and Tyrese Spicer. So a little bit of rotation in the attack. Back line and a little bit of the midfield pretty much the same. So it's kind of a mix and match for Oscar Pareja, but they got thumped, and I will be intrigued to see what the lineup looks like for Nashville and for the purple team and for Messi and friends going into the Leagues Cup matchup tomorrow. So that's the the early returns on all of that. Now, gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Who's doing what? Who's going where? We have that to get into this morning as well, because once again, the transfer window for overseas ends on the 1st, which is Monday. When Big Ben strikes at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock on Monday night, then it's over. The race is done for the time being. So you have all of the activity yesterday. And it was mentioned also in Morning Espresso, you had a 16-year-old, Rio Ngumoha, get the game-winning goal in a crazy second half with Liverpool and Newcastle. Anthony Gordon's red, well-deserved. Virgil van Dijk, there was a still that came out that literally has 2 scrape marks down Virgil van Dijk's thigh or calf. And they were about 2 inches apart, and you just see the rake job that Anthony Gordon did. And the red card, not an issue. Red card, absolutely not an issue. And it went to VAR. But, yeah, Anthony Gordon with the red. Newcastle plays with 10. They come back to tie it at 2. And then Rio, 16 years old, gets the game winner late, like 90+9, with 11 minutes of stoppage. And it's a 3-2 win for Liverpool. So who's going to be chasing extra people? Who's going to be doing all the wheeling and dealing? Who's going to be figuring out what they're going to do? Rijeka have made a loan offer for Ethan Williams for Manchester United. Real Betis still working on signing Antony. As of Tuesday lunch, no agreement yet. Betis remain keen on bringing the Brazilian winger back. Antony's preference is also to return. This is from our buddy Ben Jacobs. Chelsea is expected to sign Garnacho, so it looks like he's going to get his wish. Despite seeing multiple bids rejected, clubs are likely to reach an agreement this week, according to Jacobs' terms in place with Garnacho. Chelsea focused on other outgoings as well, including Tyreek George to Roma. Help from Alex Crook at Talk Sport. Leeds are still alert. I love how Ben phrases this. Leeds are still alert to Facundo Buonanotte in case a loan becomes possible in the final days of the window. Not their only target. Having felt for much of the summer, Brighton attacker would move to a club with European football. No bid to Brighton yet. Leeds are prepared to move if an opportunity presents itself. Uriel Yucht from Argentina. Pura Pasión La Red and De Pases Argentina was the one who is breaking that news. You've got Dortmund confirming Carney Chukwuemeka joining from Chelsea, £24 million on the fee, 5-year deal revealed earlier. So once again, you spread that over the life of the deal. It's under 4 a year, 4.8. What's 5 and a 24? So 4.8 a year spread out over the life of the deal. And you have Danny Ings undergoing a Sheffield United medical ahead of a proposed move on a free after leaving West Ham. Still finalizing terms, optimism, and that could be a good pickup if a healthy Danny Ings is going to be there to help out Sheffield United. Newcastle have been offered the chance to sign Dusan Vlahovic. Sources in Italy say Juve raised Vlahovic as a potential replacement for Alexander Isak. Juve are willing to accept offers of around €30 million in order to get him off the wage bill following the arrival of Jonathan David. As it stands, Newcastle are not planning to proceed. Also unclear if Vlahovic would be open to a move to St. James. Newcastle remain keen on Brentford Johan Vissa, set to make a second bid for Jurgen Strand-Larsen from Wolves, even though Wolves insist they don't wish to sell. Quoting our friend, the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase, everybody has a price. We'll see who goes there. West Ham close to signing Monaco midfielder Sungutu Magasa, €20 million plus add-ons finalized in the middle of the week. Porto looking to finalize a deal on Jakub Kivior in the next 24 hours. Kivior could fly as early as this evening. Loan with an obligation for in excess of €25 million. Talks with Leverkusen are underway once again for Piero Hincapié, who is keen on the move. Nottingham Forest. Striker Emmanuel Dennis could leave before the window shuts. One option discussed is a contract termination by mutual consent, with Dennis not a part of Nottingham Forest's plans. Clubs in Italy are keen, according to Ben Jacobs. Fulham still active on Philip Otele as they look to bring in 2 new attackers before the end of the window. Fulham expected to watch Otele again as Basel play Copenhagen tomorrow on deciding whether or not to place the bid. Available for under €15 million. Price remains an issue as they are also chasing after Shakhtar's Kevin. That's the thing about Shakhtar is that they always want to do like single names. So Kevin and Philip Otele are being looked at by Fulham toward the end of the window. Al-Shabaab hold an interest in Al-Ittihad's Fabinho. Cost making a permanent transfer difficult. Loan not ruled out, with Ittihad covering a big portion of the wage. Ittihad looking to offload a foreigner to free up space in case they bid for a big new name. Focus remains on Porto's Rodrigo Mora, and we know what Nino feels about Rodrigo Mora. For now, as Ittihad have space to bring in a U21 signing, the deal's never off, despite reports Ittihad are working on a new offer. West Ham rejected an approach from Everton for Tomas Souček, a move driven by David Moyes. West Ham don't want to sell. Let's see if there's anybody else that I have missed. Kobe Mainoo considering options following a diminished role under Ruben Amorim, according to Alex Crook at Talk Sport. Jacobs unclear if anything will develop in the next week. Mainoo has always been committed to staying, but a lack of opportunities have changed the dynamic. And so that is the early returns when it comes to everything going on overseas. And all of the transfers and all the news and all the things and all of that stuff. So that's where we are in that rundown with everything going on. And LAFC signing Romanian winger Alexandru Baluta, 31, a free agent after leaving FCSB, 8 caps with the Romanian national team. So Alexandru Baluta added to the offensive firepower anticipated for LAFC. So, yeah, FC Slovan Liberec. Continuing to run. But, yes, the Lutz Pfannenstiel news was the big news yesterday. Like I said, we'll catch up with our friends from Ball Watchers on Thursday, bat and leadoff. Club missed the playoffs in 2024. Expansion season 23, first in the West. Missed the playoffs in 24, 14th in the West with 7 matches left this year. And so Lutz Pfannenstiel out of a job in St. Louis. And like I said, we'll catch up with our friends with Ball Watchers early in the morning on Thursday to kind of break everything down there. Okay. Jaden Hibbert coming into the Canadian men's national team camp in September for the first time as a dual national recruit. We've been talking about this a lot, that Jaden Hibbert was being looked at by Jesse Marsh. September squad for the Canadian men's national team, Jaden Hibbert heading into camp. Jaquil Marshall-Rutty, Junior Hoylett. Injuries are keeping some folks out, but Jaden Hibbert, a part of the listing for as reported by Thomas Hewitt at Canadian Soccer Daily. Jesse Marsh stressing the importance of testing the men's national team against different opponents. And so you end up with Jesse Marsh sitting there going, okay, 23 player roster ahead of the upcoming September FIFA window, traveling to face Romania and Wales in a pair of European friendlies. Separately, I'm glad that Canada's men's national team is going abroad, and hopefully they are spending the money to do this, and that it isn't some wild shenanigan or trying to figure out, okay, how can we do this without really spending a nickel. So it appears that Canadian men's national team, they're going to be traveling, which is a good thing. September 5, September 9, prep for the build-up for the World Cup. Ranking of 28th. Junior Hoylett, surprising return at 35. Jaquil Marshall-Rutty there. Once again, Jaden Hibbert was the surprise. Born in England, eligible through Canada with family ties. Latest dual national that Jesse Marsh has worked hard to secure. You have depth behind Crépeau and Dane St. Clair, now with Jaden Hibbert. Jonathan David, Kyle Laren, Stephen Eustachio, Ali Ahmed, Jaden Nelson, Jacob Schaffelberg, Nathan Saliba of Anderlecht. Jonathan Osorio misses out. Absent, but anticipated to return once they get back to full fitness. Davies, Moise Bombito, Alistair Johnston. Defensively, Marsh's squad, according to Canadian Soccer Daily, look a little different. Luc de Faugerolles, who moved to Dender in the Belgian Pro League this summer, should get more opportunities to prove himself. Schedule intensifies with a home clash with Australia against Stade Saputo before an away date with Colombia in New Jersey in October. Less than a year with the World Cup. That's your rundown of what the 23 man roster is looking like. So that was released earlier today. Jonathan, and so Jaden Hibbert, a part of it. That's good stuff. That Jaden Hibbert is a part of this discussion now. Canadian men's national team. Told SDH back in the preseason that Canada had been in contact. And actually, Jaden is a tri-national. Jamaica, USA, Canada. So we'll see what the future holds for Jaden Hibbert, but it does include a September squad call-up for Canada with Jesse Marsh on the poach. So we'll see what happens with Jaden Hibbert. So that's very cool. It's a very cool thing to see with Jaden Hibbert that he gets the call-up for the September session when it comes to the Canadian men's national team. So that's very, very cool that we get to see that from Jaden Hibbert. All right, let me double check with what else is on your guys' minds as we're kind of drifting in and out here this morning. David, I say, Kevin, please use the Catherine O'Hara screen. I would like to, David, but I don't know if I've got the pipes for it. I mean, it might be like, what I may do is I may pull the drop and I'll add it to the stacks. How about that? I don't think I've got the pipes to hit the Catherine O'Hara, ridge when it comes to the the screaming, the Home Alone screaming. I don't quite have that yet. 4Card doing the excellent producer work this morning. Sudan and Madagascar, 10:30 a.m. on Fanatis, and that's the beauty of AFCON is that you can watch it on Fanatis. Well, let me see where it is, by the way, since it's coming up in 5 minutes. My guess is it's on the BNs. So the CAF Africa Nations Championship is on Fanatis, and what you can do. If you do not subscribe to Fanatis, I would recommend it because then you get to truly add to all of the leagues and things that you have not had the opportunity to enjoy. You get all the BNs, and it is on. It looks like it is on BN. Yes, it is on BN. Dialed it up right there. And 4Card, I can thank 4Card for that. And you can go to Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. You can get Fanatis. Helps them out with subscribers, helps us out a little bit too, and it helps you when it comes to adding to your true adding of nations and leagues and competitions that you may not necessarily have known about or watched in the past. You get all the BNs, Nuestra Tele, CDO for the fans, Liga 1 Max Pro. You can watch Argentine soccer because it was wall-to-wall last night. River Plate and Lanús, by the way, last night, just to give you an example. 94th minute goal by Lanús to get the equalizer 1-1 against River. And I don't think Gajardo had a post-match press conference because he was that mad. So the LPF is there. Argentina's there. Gold TV is there with our buddy Nino Torres. You can watch what's going on with Gold TV in South America and in Portugal. You've got TEC. Once again, they're heavy with Argentina. You have Liga 1 Max Pro. We got to see, we're seeing a lot of Luis Abram from Sporting Cristal and what he's been able to do recently. So Luis Abram scored for Sporting Cristal on the weekend. LGP scored last night, by the way, in his league match. So you get all that at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. You also get Tigo Sports. TVV has been added recently, and you got Gold TV and Sportia is on right now on TEC. But right now, as thank you 4Card for letting me know, I'm watching Madagascar in the Sudan in the African Nations Championship. It is right there off screen, and I'm watching it on Fanatis. Also, let me run through the other promos for you. Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, buy the gear. We have to reorder the scarves because we are out of them. And we also have to redesign them as a part of the reorder because obviously when we changed our logo, we had to change the logo now on the scarf going forward. And it was really cool, by the way, and very humbling to see folks wearing their scarves in Arkansas a couple weeks ago. And so if you order the scarves, it's going to take a little bit of back order, but you get the scarf from me, you get all the other clothing from everybody on the other side of the Atlantic. Helps out the Marshall Islands continue to keep the lights on as they're trying to build from their first set of friendlies in the Outrigger Challenge Cup that we saw a couple weeks ago here on the network. Now, also, Grady Baby Co. You can get the Soccer is Just Better in Atlanta gear. Red, black, sweatshirt, T-shirt, gold embossed lettering, SDH Network logo on one cuff, Grady Baby logo on the other cuff. Helps out middle school soccer programs attached to the Atlanta public school system. So it's very, very cool stuff there. Olive in York is a part of our Soccer for Good campaign here in 25. You can get the first ever jersey that we have at SDH, and it is a Navy jersey. You have your choice of personalization in either white letters and numerals or the Carolina blue, double blue, Columbia blue letters and numerals. You can do that, and you can dial that up as, once again, a part of our Soccer for Good campaign. Beyond Goals Mentoring on one sleeve, Soccer for Good on the other sleeve, and you can do Soccer for Good in that way through Olive and York. Very, very 80s floppy collar kind of thing. SoccerDownHere.net. You can get all of our gear. Go to the shop. You can get all the new logo gear. And you can, once again, show your support for SDH out in the community wearing the SDH gear. You go, once again, SoccerDownHere.net. Go to shop, and you can help out. You can help us out there, and you can show your support for SDH across the board. Now, also, what you can do is you can also become a Fanatico. And you say, so how can I become a Fanatico? Well, I will tell you. Here's what you do. You go and I'll see if I can type it, because the thing is, with this particular with this layout that I have here in front of me, I have to guess that I'm typing it correctly. Group.chant.fan/soccer down here /join. And I hope I've typed it correctly. I think I did. So let's see. Did I type it correctly? It hides it from me, and I did. Okay. So what can you do for $10 a year? Well, you can join our Fanaticos program. And on the Chant app, and I'm trying to shield it here so you can see it and not have it shine for those of you watching on the video version. Once again, you can be a Fanatico, $10 a year. It helps out our Soccer for Good campaign. And with a lot of our friends that are on here with us, you can go to a lot of really cool places, a lot of breweries here in the northern half of the state. You get special discounts by being a Fanatico and letting them know. Just to give you an idea. Brass Tap in Marietta, Moxie Hotel Midtown, 20% off hotel food and beverage. South Main in Watkinsville, Schoolhouse in Marietta, Hard Cider in Marietta, Elixir Brewing, $1 off select beers in Buford and Monroe. Round Trip, $1 off select beers in Marietta. Social Fox, limit 2 per visit, $1 off select beers in Norcross. Keys to Flavor Catering, you get a percentage off your first catered event if you use Keys to Flavor up in Sugar Hill. Fado Midtown, 10% off all food tabs. O'Sullivan's, $5 select beers, 10% off your food bill, 10% off merch. All that Decatur FC merch that's there, you can get it at a discount if you're a Fanatico. Lloyd's Soccer, 20% off select Atlanta United gear in Johns Creek. Finished Goods Brew Works in Winder. Slow Pour in Lawrenceville. Outrun in Stone Mountain. Tires Plus in Alpharetta. $25 off alignment, $25 off oil change, $50 off 4 tires for the Alpharetta location on Milton Parkway. Dad's Garage, $2 off beer and wine with a paid ticket, limit 2 per visit. Chateau Arenal, this is my personal favorite because it's so random. If you want to go to Costa Rica and spend time at a resort, you want to go to watch Herediano, Saprissa, or Alajuelense play soccer in San Jose, you want to go spend time at the resort, the Chateau Arenal in El Castillo, San Ramon, you get a code for 10% off booking. 10% off booking. 10% off booking, people. So you could do that by being a Fanatico. Battle and Brew, 10% off Sandy Springs and the Battery. Wild Leap in Atlanta, $1 off Chance IPA or a local gold blonde ale, limit 3 per visit. And you can do that as a Fanatico, and you can enjoy your time and your conversations there by being a Fanatico and helping out our Soccer for Good campaign. You can do that too. So all those things that you can do by being a Fanatico here at SDH. I think, wow, we've got a 3rd minute yellow card already on the Sudan. I think that's everybody. That's Marshall Islands. That's us. That's Fanatico. That is Fanatis. I think that's yeah, and so I think that's everybody. And I'm sure that if I forgot it, I'll bring him back in tomorrow. So that's all good. Abby said that Jaden got the Canadian passport. She spoke with him on Sunday. So very, very cool. And it's good to see Jaden get the call up. And so it will be a very, very unique thing to see Jaden working with Jesse Marsh and see how that's and to see how that's going to play out. Okay. We'll do the Jason Stevens interview here, and then we'll come back at the end and we'll do gossip, rumor, and innuendo that we might have missed, news of the morning, and what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Okay, it's that time. Last half hour here on Tuesday. And what we've started doing, for those of you that may not know, and you're wondering what's going on Tuesdays, we've started a bit of a deeper dive into the idea of multi-club ownership. And like I said, what started this was the transaction between Atlanta United and Eagle Football Holdings involving Thiago Almada. And so far, you want to call it an inability? Fine. The lack of payment, as was stated legally by FIFA, that, dude, you owe Atlanta United this money. And now with a sell-on to a third club, you're looking at close to $30 million that Eagle Football Holdings owes Atlanta United over Thiago Almada. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to tap into our experts and find out about multi-club ownership. And that's what Eagle Football Holdings is. We have City Football Group, we have Eagle Football Holdings, we have a couple of others. You have all these folks that own multiple clubs and multiple leagues, and they are becoming more of the norm in professional soccer across here on the globe. And we wanted to kind of dive into the why. This week we dive into the why. We dive into the who, and it's 3 distinct groups. We dive into the why you have multi-club ownership, and we kind of go into the specifics of it and kind of things to keep an eye on when you see like a City Football Group and you see an Eagle Football Holdings, and when you see the hedge fund folks that are buying multiple clubs, and it's spread across leagues and strata and all this kind of stuff, and the whys and the percentages and the investments and all this kind of stuff, because it's important for all of us, myself included, to understand what we're staring at here when soccer clubs are part of business models and assets, and what to look out for when it comes to this as it continues to grow to be a part of everything here in the soccer landscape. And so we catch up with our friend Jason Stevens, who is a consultant in England for the sport, and he's been involved with the sport for a very long time. And we asked Jason to kind of break everything down when it comes to multi-club ownership, what to look at, what to expect. And so, and Abby, I think you're right. We should start a pool of when Atlanta United will get paid and put money towards a cause. Probably what we should do, how about this? We'll do like Soccer for Good, and it'll be a part of our Soccer for Good campaign for 25 or 26 or whenever. And we'll find out if somebody actually, if someone actually is correct, and put all the money in a pot and have it go to the Soccer for Good campaign. I like that idea. But here is our conversation that we had. It's part 2 of the conversation that we've had with Jason Stevens about MCOs, and we get to find out more about the idea, who is latching onto this idea, and what they're getting out of it. So today it's more of the who and the why when it comes to MCOs, and we'll find out what's on Jason Stevens' mind this week as we make our deep dive into the economics of soccer. And as always, time to catch up with our friend Jason Stevens, find out what in the wide world of sports is going on as we learn our master's class when it comes to MCOs and the multi-club model and all of that, so we can become better watchers of the entire landscape when it comes to owning soccer clubs here in the present day. Jason, as always, thanks for dropping by and giving the education.
I appreciate. I'm still welcome back after last week. So
please, it is always a red carpet for you, especially when it comes to everything going on that we need to know about. This week, when it comes to the multi-club ownership model, I know that we wanted to get into the why and the motives and the motivations, and I know that there are a couple of different directions that you wanted to go here. Where did you want to start first?
Yeah, I think if we look at it, I mean, when we see multi-club ownership, there are several groups that are behind this. So if we thought we would break it down into 3 groups, so the state fund groups, the private equity model, and then the wealthy individuals. So if we look at the motives for those 3 groups, I think that may provide a bit of a better understanding for all these MCOs going forward.
All right, so if we go motive, state fund, what are we staring at here?
Well, first of all, let's look at it from a state fund is more of a long-term position. There's an element of geopolitics, soft power and sports washing connected. You could say it's image and reputation management. It's about international relations. Clubs have become a tool for the global influence from them. But ultimately, the sports teams are serving as a cultural bridge between nations. Typically we've got about 4 state funds that are all vying for their own level of competitive advantage within the MCO. So we've got Qatar, which is in the build up to the World Cup ever since 2010 when it was awarded the World Cup. It went straight out and bought PSG. And then we had this long decade of them covering up human rights abuses. They were trying to normalise state involvement, which reduces, I suppose, in their eyes, by grabbing hold of a club, it was reducing their international scrutiny. The other side of it, you've got Doha being integral to the MENA region as a business hub for sports, which was acting as a form of cultural integration. So we've seen Qatar, they went out, yes, they started investing in PSG, then they started undertaking a lot of sponsorships. Two big brands, they sponsored Barcelona for a while, and they went out and sponsored Inter Miami. And then they got involved in all sorts of different sports as well.
So,
yeah.
No. Then you look at state funds, and let me ask it this way: with state funds and their ownership, how much would you just, when you look at it today, how much of having them at the big table with all of the other owners is because of all of the stuff that you've discussed, all of the sports washing, all of the negative press that could come along with it when it comes to their individual countries that they're attached to? How much of it today is, yeah, okay, we know that part, but we need to focus more on the economics for survival of either the club or the entity that club is in? How much of this is just kind of, taking the good, the bad with the good, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I'm going to get a couple of examples here. So if we look at focus on Saudi Arabia, I mean, listen, a couple of years ago, they decided that they was going to invest £20 billion as part of their Vision 2030, which was basically transforming their economy, coming away from the liability of oil and using sport as a vehicle for that to happen. Now, what they looked at was their population and realised that 65% of their population was under the age of 35, and they were heavily influenced in football and sport. So Saudi have taken the decision to use sport as a vehicle to help generate, relations inside the country, as well as the international side of things. But to the scale in which they've done it, it's caused controversy. Obviously, them potentially buying the World Cup 2030, Saudi Pro League buying, players for extortionate fees, paying them extortionate wages. And then you've got them, when I go back to buying the World Cup, how they did it was they went into the smaller FIFA regions, FIFA countries, member associations as we call them, and they started to create partnerships, financial partnerships in return for their votes. But for me, I would say that's a bit of what we call a lightning rod effect for attention, and the world has certainly been focused on Saudi Arabia since that strategy began. And don't forget, the sports strategy goes beyond football. It's live golf, it's boxing, it's WWE, it's junior tennis, it goes on and on and on. And then you've got Abu Dhabi, UAE, which is, you could say it's like a positive branding for their international reputation. But they have a big emphasis on community development and local regeneration investment. If you look at their Manchester City, their flagship club, what you've got over there is that England's government itself has basically hasn't got the investment to be able to help develop and keep the northeast, northwest up to the standards of the south. So you've got another political agenda here where you've got a nation coming in which is helping the wider infrastructure to help develop those areas, Saudi with the northeast and Abu Dhabi with the northwest. In return, they've got access to two of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, obviously the biggest league in there. So, they're going to be patient. There's going to be capital benefits long term. And I'm going to say this is probably, a decade-long strategy rather than them worrying about quarterly profit margins,
Private equity, motives, and I know that in our discussions with some of the other multi-club owners, obviously you look at someone like John Texter, who has ties to Aries management and massive interest rates that are attached to it. But motives when it comes to private equity, is it something that is as easy as to sit there and say, we see this as an investment, or we see a distressed asset that we want to capitalize on and assimilate it eventually? Is it almost like like the Borg from Star Trek when it comes to adding things and just making yourself bigger? What's the motive for private equity here?
Yeah, well, I think it's like football is distressed assets, undervalued assets, underdeveloped assets. And I sort of touched upon it last week, whereas private equity, when they compare the American sports model to the European sports model, a lot of experts believe that football, because of the global popularity and the size, when you compare it to the NFL and the big 5 leagues in America, that football in Europe is 40% developed. There's another 60% margin for it to grow. So private equity believes it's got the expertise in terms of not just its financial leverage, but also its experience with technology and commercial powers links to help those clubs to develop their values and revenues. So, I mean, you're looking at enhanced financial returns on an annual basis, and then you're probably looking at increased asset values once they come up with their exit strategy, etc. I mean, some of these private equity guys are quite smart, so it is a little bit of strategic positioning for future industry consolidation, etc. When we look at the Club World Cup, and we're seeing murmurs already that competition originally penciled in for every 4 years is potentially going to change to every 2 years after 2029, and we saw the amount of money involved in that competition. So now it's going to offer, clubs in smaller regions an opportunity to take part in that competition on a regular basis. You've got the Super League, that's still not dead, as I mentioned last week. So private equity getting involved with that, and then we've got, like you said, new competitions. We've already seen like Relevant Sports in America that they've now got the rights to bring in league matches from La Liga. So you're going to see Villarreal versus Barcelona on your shores in November, December. And they've been trying for a couple of years now, but the governance bridges have been smoothed out, and there's no law stopping leagues now from playing those games overseas. So again, when you look at it's a unique opportunity. You can say that you've got an alternative asset class development. A high percentage of clubs don't own their own stadia or training facilities, or you can say that the infrastructure they've got needs regeneration because the demands of the modern fan have changed in recent years, and the way that we use our stadiums have definitely changed. So you can see that there's loads and loads of opportunity there. And ultimately, what it's going to offer in a few years' time is premium valuations and but the big thing is I want to get onto is there's definitely a private equity collective approach, and what we're seeing then is they drive up the league's values and competition rights. Now, if you've got 10 clubs and you've got different private equity groups all one in each club, then they can all drive the value up collectively, increase the sponsorship, increase the broadcasting rights, etc. And I sort of say, is the USA a fourth state fund because of all the private equity groups from America that are really actively in the European game at the moment? We mentioned Arctos, Aries, Apollo are just getting involved. You've got Clear Lake, Bain Capital, Redbird, Oaktree, 26 North. You've got all these groups, etc. And there's probably another 20 or 30 on top of that, on them.
How much of the market equity interest is to get a quick turn on an investment? And because, I mean, look, there have been some things out there where you wonder why they're investing in a particular individual or a particular ownership group, because of the idea that ownership group really is carrying a lot of debt load, and the market equity fund comes in and sits there and tries to keep that corporation that has the negative debt load running to continue to have that product that they represent still moving. I mean, why do you invest in something that is a net massive negative when it comes to a bottom line?
Yeah, it's a bit like mortgages, right? When you own your mortgage, and the amount of interest that we pay on our mortgage over the 25-year period, etc., equates to near enough double the price that we paid for the house.
Right.
And the reason we do that is because we know that the asset will gain a capital value along the way. So I think a lot of private equity is relying on the club valuations to increase at the same rates of interest, or not more. So when they do come to exit, yes, at the moment it is just cost. But once they exit, they get that money back tenfold. I mean, the other side is that what are the exit strategies, right? There's multiple exit pathways. And what we see is that you can exit either partially. So we saw that with Ipswich when they bought in Bright Path. They bought them in for 106 million, which was paid for what they paid for the club in the first place, and they still had 60% of the asset. And then you've got people like Man United, so the Glaziers, etc. They had Enios come in, and they paid 1.25 billion for 25% of the club, right? And giving away the football operations. For the Glaziers, that's perfect, right? Because they've got the brand value, the commercial money coming in. That's what they really want. Leave that responsibility of the pitch to somebody else. So that's that's a deal that I think private equity are looking at, going, okay, I'm not too sure how this is going to work, profitable in the end. But is there another motive with Jim Radcliffe when we come on to individual owners? Is that crossing over? But we've also seen there's groups now forming where they only want like a minority stake in the commercial operations. So they're looking at 30% stakes in clubs. They don't want nothing to do with the football operations. They just want to help drive up the revenues in the commercial, maximise their social media output, and then try and generate the revenues and the value that way.
Our friend Jason Stevens, a consultant over in England for the Beautiful Game, hanging out with us here for our continued education when it comes to multi-club ownerships. Third one is the individual. And the individuals seem to be drifting away into the other two that we've been talking about, but motives for the individual idea of doing an MCO.
Yeah, I think the motives that we've just can overlap with the groups that we've just said. So if we look at the local owners, for example, are they passion? Are they purpose? Are they profile? And what we mean by purpose is that they feel it's like a community responsibility and social contribution through their various company entities, etc. That they feel they need to keep that club active and thriving in the community. You could say it's a profile for them where it provides like instant global recognition and access to probably elite social circles. I mean, the funny thing is, when we go back to 2005, when Roman Abramovich coming to Chelsea, he was the first guy that was like from an outsider coming in millions of pounds, just splashing them. And then he was also quite secretive in his like profile. He didn't want people to know who he was. He was very, very rarely did he do an interview. Very rarely did he get himself exposed publicly. But it was that sort of, I suppose, football business was starting to evolve and people wanted to know who you are as well. And where his reluctance to actually meet them halfway to interview, people started to then dig deeper into who are these guys. But it actually brought like I would say, whether it was unwelcomed at the time, but a spotlight, an element of fame that showed this light on this guy that had this strategy of the way he was managing clubs, firing owners if they weren't successful, making success because they were winning titles, trophies every year. And Chelsea are still, if you go back to 2005, 20 years, the most successful club in English football in terms of the amount of trophies they've actually won over that period. And that sort of profile, I wouldn't be surprised if that was like an ignition for other private equity owners that got in there. And then you've got, obviously, if we relate back to state-backed entities, it's about positioning, it's about power, it's about portfolio diversification, etc. And then private equity, what is it about? Is it about profit? Is it about platform creation or player development? Player development is proving to be another model for where you can generate revenue streams from. And the MCO groups are really, really good at that. I mean, if I just quickly go into this, we look at 4 major MCO groups, right? The City Football Group. Now, in the last 3 seasons, they've generated 600 million from their academy sales. Chelsea, 270 million. Yeah, I'm not including this transfer window as well. And then you've got Red Bull Group that in the last 3 years have generated over 400 million. Maybe a little bit surprising for you guys, but Eagle Football Group has generated over 225 million and has also had a very busy summer as well. So we've got 4 different types of groups there. You've got the state-backed fund, you've got private equity, and you've got wealthy owners. And they're all they've created a model that can generate vast quantities through player development.
Random question to wrap up this week.
Yeah.
If you, and this is the question that's kind of based on the Thiago Almada transaction, and I'm sure, and it's happened in the past with other groups and so on and so on. So if a club purchases a player and they have still yet to pay for the player, but they sell him on, How are they able to do that in the machinations of the whole thing? Where if I pick up a player from a club and I still haven't paid the full amount on a player, and I sell him on, and I still haven't paid, I still haven't paid the first guy, but I'm moving him on to a third guy. How is that transaction still allowed to happen if you haven't paid your debt to club number one and you're moving him to club number three? How does this work?
Yeah, well, listen, the way that there's two sides to the financial accounting in football. Okay, you've got the player transfer, and then you've got how you buy it. Okay, so for example, let's just look at like Declan Rice, for example.
Sure.
He went to Chelsea he went to Arsenal a couple of years ago. The fee was 104 million. Now, West Ham wanted that money paid up within 12 months. So Arsenal had to go to a creditor to give them that money up front, and they had to pay 3 instalments, 30 straight away, 30 at Christmas, 30 before the window closed in the summer. Now, on their accounts, because of the length of the contract, they can spread that out over 5 years. So with the creditor, they go, look, we just pay you back over the 5 year, the length of the contract. We don't necessarily have to pay you back in that 1 year that West Ham demanded that money. However, if you move that player on to another club, that club does have to settle that full transfer. It has to settle that. You cannot have ongoing transfer fees. Now, that may happen in some leagues, but I know in the Premier League that can't. You have to close that transfer down before you move it on again. Now, there may be some loopholes in terms of the creditors and debtors that you can, say, for example, same deal, Declan Rice moves on, just say, for example, my team, Liverpool. He moves on to Liverpool. This is me wishful thinking, right? So he moves on to Liverpool in the next couple of years, for next year, but he's still got 2 years left on the debt. So Arsenal would say, right, he's got 14 million left on that payment. So, but the creditors, he may still have another 60, 70 million, because it depends how they've structured that deal with them. And again, without fully answering that one, but there was a great example with Kylian Mbappe when he went to Monaco a couple of years ago. Now, he went for over 180 million. But the way that they structured that deal was that they paid Monaco the minimum amount in years 1 and year 2 so they could comply with PSR. And then when it got to year 3, they gave him a bigger chunk. In year 4, then they gave the majority of it in year 5. But by the time he got to year 5 of his contract, they renegotiated the terms of that deal. And then they were able to leverage the payments for their own part over another 5 years. But for Monaco, they had to pay it all back in that time. They're very creative and complicated. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why we bring you in to have these kinds of discussions about the creative aspects of all of this and how it now is coming together, where you have groups of 3 different groups, 3 different subsets doing things kind of the same ways. It's just where the individuals are and where the money goes and how it is operated. Because I'm still false value and false revenue to me last week. That was what blew my mind. I'm like, absolutely, yeah, that's the best way that I could phrase stuff like that. But now that I have those 2 terms in my head, I'm now keeping an eye on all of that stuff.
Yes.
What topic do you want to tackle next time?
Well, let's pick up a couple of MCOs, right? And let's have a look at them in more detail. And we'll have a look at how private equity is actually working in those MCOs. There's some interesting sides to it. I'm working on an article at the moment where I'm just analysing the private equity links within League One, the French league. And it's actually quite scary when you see a couple of the American groups behind that, Elliott Management, and then you've got Redbird Capital, how they're working together. One lending the other one money to buy the club. Who's got control? It's quite an interesting one. They've managed to back all the investigators. They can't determine it. But we've got a couple of little things to look at there.
Sweet. Looking forward to it. As always, I love these conversations. It's a great education. And we can't thank you for being a part of everything here at SDH to educate us all on what's going on, especially where all the money's being hidden, where it's going, who's got it, who doesn't have it, what the interest rates are, what they're looking for, all these kinds of things. Jason, my friend, great to see you again. We'll catch up with you next time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, John. Thank you.
That's Jason Stevens. Great conversations that we get to have with him about the economics of sport. And we thought, and we still think, it's important to know. And I know that there's a lot of money terms and terminology and thought and all this kind of stuff, and who owns what and where and what part of the planet is it on, but it all impacts everything, and it's interwoven to where it impacts the rules of engagement when it comes to the sport itself and who can buy what and where you can get things done, all the financials. And so it's great to catch up with Jason. So as he says, next week we'll talk about private equity and the MCOs. And specifically in the John Texter example that we talk about, Aries Management in part of the negotiations and giving money to Eagle Football Holdings, Aries Management basically gave Texter 9 figures to the left of the decimal place, but the interest rate was insane, 19% interest. It's like a $193 million loan from a private equity firm, and it was at 19% interest. Why? I mean, and you look at it from two different ways. Why would, and we talked about it a little bit this time, why would a private equity firm invest to that level, and why would the individual getting the loan sign on to that interest rate? Are you that desperate to continue what you've got going on to keep it going, or is there something else at play? And so that's what we're going to be doing on Tuesdays. And like I said, we also have our friends in South America to explain what's going on with the John Texter situation, specifically with Botafogo. We'll have those conversations as well. But this last half hour on Tuesdays, we'll be delving into the economics of sport and finding out what's going on and what we need to kind of keep an eye on when it comes to economics and how the sport is being run on a global scale. And we can't thank Jason enough for all of this. Okay, the official team release for the Canadian men's national team for matches in Bucharest and Cardiff. Ali Ahmed, Zorhan Basang, Tejan Buchanan, Matthew Chouanier, Derek Cornelius, Maxime Crépeau, Jonathan David, Promise David, Luc Defogerol, Stephen Eustachio, Junior Hoylett, Jaden Hibbert, Jamie Knight-LaBelle, Ismail Kone, Kyle Laren, Richie Larea, Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, Jaden Nelson, Tani Oluwaseyi, Nathan Saliba, Jacob Schaffelberg, Nico Seeger, Dane St. Clair, Joel Waterman. So that is the rundown of the Canadian roster as it was released. We're kind of waiting to see if it does in fact happen around 11 o'clock, whether the United States roster gets announced, but as of right now, it has not. The match info is going to be for September. It is going to be against South Korea, September 6th, 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Harrison, New Jersey. And then against Japan at lower.com in Columbus, September 9th at 7:30. So South Korea and Japan are the September thoughts for the U.S. men's national team. And like I said, we're kind of lying in wait to see if the U.S. Announces their roster. It's supposed to be announced today. And so traditionally, it always pops up here in and around 11 o'clock. So we're going to kind of keep an eye on things and see if it does, in fact, get announced before we go off the air this morning in a couple of minutes. Okay, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Once again, as we were divulged, Madagascar and Sudan, and it was an opportunity that was just missed by Madagascar's Feno Hashina, and it is goalless in the 33rd minute as we are looking at the African Nations Championships. African Nations Championship going on right now on Fanatis, eventz.co/soccer down here. Okay, what else to watch today? And what we've started doing is kind of keep an eye on Cherry's cheat sheets out of Los Angeles, and in addition to our friends at Soccer America. So Cherry's cheat sheet, you have Champions League final qualifying round second legs, Carabao Cup second round, one DFB Pokal, first and second action in Iceland, and the Chan semifinals, as was broken down for us. So it is UCL final qualification round second legs. Paramount Plus has the two matches at 3 o'clock. Kairat Almaty and Celtic is on Golazo Network at 12:45. Paramount Plus And 2 to NA have Sturm Graz and Bodo Glimt at 3. And then also on Paramount Plus and VEEX, they have Paphos and Red Star, or Crvena Zvezda, as they like to be called. So also English League Cup second round, 2:30, Paramount Plus, Wolves and West Ham. Golazo Network at 2:45 has Bournemouth and Brentford. Everything else is on Paramount Plus. Burnley Derby, Sunderland Huddersfield, Preston North End Wrexham, Millwall Coventry. Coventry has been lighting it up ever since they bought their own barn. The team's finally back in charge of the stadium, and they're just destroying people. So Millwall and Coventry, Norwich, Southampton, Birmingham City, and Port Vale. All of those are on Paramount Plus. Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds, which will be an interesting situation. That's on CBS Sports Network at 3 o'clock and Paramount Plus. There are 10 more matches that do not have EPL teams attached. And if you've got a way to find Sky Sports Plus in England, that's where you can check those out. DFB Pokal, Braunschweig and Stuttgart is on ESPN Plus. That's at 2:45. Other UEFA matches are on One Football. Vikingo Reykjavik and Valor Reykjavik against Vestri and UMF Afturelding. Those are at 2 and 3:15. And then there are 3 EFL trophy matches that are on Sky Sports Plus. Once again, BN has Madagascar and Sudan right now, and Morocco and Senegal is at 1:30. And so that's the early afternoon stuff. And you've got a couple of matches tonight in college soccer. And once again, as a part of our programming grid and how it expands, we're covering the college game. We've got Georgia State. We're checking in with Mercer, checking in with Georgia Gwinnett, checking in with Oglethorpe, and keeping an eye on all of them this season, in addition to the smaller colleges. And we're catching up with them kind of on a recurring basis as well. So set your notifications for our college programming. Warren Wilson and VMI, Georgia State and NC Asheville. That's at 6 o'clock on the Plus. Milwaukee, Lindenwood, South Carolina, and Clemson is at 7 o'clock on SEC Network. Rose-Hulman, Southern Indiana is at 8:30. That is also on ESPN Plus. But obviously the big one in this footprint is our friends at UNC Asheville taking on Georgia State at 6 o'clock. So tonight, 10 o'clock, Central American Cup, Fox Soccer Plus, Cartagenas and Independiente. We mentioned everything going on Paramount Plus with UEFA Champions League and League Cup. Tonight at 9:07, it is Liga MX Femenil on Universo, Chivas and Monterrey. That is at 9:07 tonight. So that is your look at what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it today as we get you ready for anything and everything going on in the world of soccer. And I'm still waiting. I'm kind of killing time here a little bit, trying to see if there's anything going to happen from the USMNT before we get out of here. Update from Ben Jacobs, Saudi Pro League side Al-Qadsiya set to sell midfielder Eki Fernandez to Bayer Leverkusen, getting a minimum of 35, having bought him for 20 only a year ago. Bonuses achieved. Qadsiya can reach double their investment. And you end up with another space being available. Qadsiya retain a sell-on. Transfer strong example of the Saudi market being two-way, according to Ben. Young players arriving, growing in value. Qadsiya now hope to reinvest the funds, whether this summer or in future windows. Qadsiya's model similar to Brighton, Brentford, or Benfica, investing in young talent, prepared to develop and sell on when it suits all parties. 18-year-old Brazilian Gabi Carvalho and 20-year-old Ghanaian Bonsu Ba are 2 other players that Qadsiya believe have big futures. And once again, that's the update from Ben Jacobs with all of the stuff that he continues to post this time of year. It is fast and furious. Chelsea have added Barca's Fermin Lopez to their list of options. A €50 million sale is possible. Talks have taken place on the players' side. Understand one other Champions League club from outside of England also made an approach this week. Chelsea still assessing whether to move, as David Ornstein called it, and there has been no club-to-club discussion as of yet. Isak update. Alexander Isak has no plans to reintegrate or play for Newcastle again. This has been made clear in meetings for months. Player position may not change at all, but certainly not with the window open. Isak would only consider a softened stance if Liverpool tell him a move is impossible this summer. Liverpool won't offer anywhere close to 150 if a second bid arrives. Club know they're the only suitor. They're going to stick to their valuation should a deal present itself this week. And so that is the latest on the Alexander Isak situation and latest on ins and outs as we're getting toward the end of the window at the end of this week for all of the European transfers. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on overseas as we continue to go forward. And like I said, nothing on any kind of social media one way or the other in trying to determine what the U.S. team may look like. Nothing as of yet. We do have the availability report for the twos, and the only player out Wednesday night for the match on the SDH network, Toto Maju, because of yellow card accumulation, and everyone else is healthy and going to be ready to go on a very, very busy week because it is on Wednesday night. Messi and Friends 2 at Fifth Third, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:33 kick. Maddie and Jason will be there for that one. And then on Saturday night, I will have the call for you, Hunt City and Atlanta United 2 from the Fraction once again. And pregame show will be a half hour ahead. And it will be, once again, a big matchup for Atlanta United 2. Must-win situation for the Twos on the midweek because of where they are in the standings with the makeup games. The game that they could have taken advantage and gotten points in Orlando over the weekend, you end up with no points. And so this turns into a must-win situation for the Twos, really, if they're going to keep the beat with 2 matches in hand and trying to get some more wins along the way as they're trying to close out the regular season, chasing after the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. So 7:30 Wednesday night, 7:33 kick, 7 o'clock pregame. Maddie and Jason will have it for you. You're going to hear from Santi Pita. You're going to hear from interim head coach Jose Silva. That's going to be in the pregame show, in addition to setting up your weekend. And then once again, we'll do it all over again Saturday night from the Fraction with Huntsville City Football Club taking on Atlanta United 2 in the race to the playoffs in MLS Next Pro. The man hits refresh and nothing changes. And so, of course, I will guarantee you that the second that we log off today is when the U.S. men's national team is going to give you the rundown of everything that is going to be happening involving the September window and who is going to be going where. So tell you what, we will go ahead and, yes, must beat Messi and Friends. Yes, must beat Messi and Friends dose as well. So once again, tomorrow it is Tyler Pilgrim, Scarves and Spikes at 9:15. See if we can catch up with our friend Dylan Butler from MLSsoccer.com, busiest man in the Northeast, at 10 o'clock. We've got backup plans. Also, 10:30, Jamie Henderson, the new sporting director at Union Omaha, USL League One, leaving his post at Atlanta United. We'll catch up with him at 10:30. Find out what Omaha's like, why he decided to go in this direction, why he wanted to be challenged at this point of his career, and we'll see what the latest is with Jamie. So it's Tyler, Dylan, and Jamie tomorrow. Some special guests maybe along the way. It's going to be a very, very busy week. Remember, Ball Watchers joining us, bat and leadoff on Thursday to talk about Lutz Pfannenstiel and everything going on with all caps. And then the Power Hour, 10 and 10:30, Nino and Nico. Lucas Panzica joining us to bat leadoff on Friday to talk about Nashville, some opposition research going into the Atlanta match. We'll find out what's going on, hopefully, with Beyond Goals mentoring. And we'll find out, hopefully, what's going on with our friends at Apple TV and Major League Soccer. And we got other stuff that we're chasing. And so we'll let you know what's going on, filling in some holes, trying to get some interviews done on the women's soccer side because the Gainbridge Super League is up and running. We've got some folks that are up and running there that we're trying to catch up with as well, and some news out of the WPSL that we're chasing as well. And I second Abby's thoughts. Have a terrific Tuesday, everybody. Thanks for dropping by here on SDH AM. And obviously, keep an eye out on your socials because I'm sure the second that we run the closed music, the U.S. men's national team is going to announce what their roster is going to look like in September. So thanks to Jason Stevens and thanks to KCD for coming in and letting everybody know what's going on in their parts of the world. And thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us as you always do. For everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. Thanks for coming by. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. See you in a little under 22 hours. And since it's the end of the show, it means we get to do this. Play it safe. We'll see you tomorrow.